Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Morning, Dr. Rubin.
Femi, don't mind, doctor. Don't mind, doctor. Doctor, it's not your fault.
No.
It's actually not anybody's fault.
You people played into their hands. It's what you have done. You are the architect of your own misfortune.
That an Eba man is giving we the Jebus lecture.
Okay. Everybody will have their day. It's okay.
You know
it's okay. If those allegations are true, the government should investigate historical facts.
Dr. Abati, it's not your fault.
Do you know what? The only thing I will say...
lectures.
Thank you very much. The only thing I will say is that interview, there's a 10-minute version. I would implore you to go onto the Arise YouTube channel and watch it in full, because he does make very strong accusations and does call for an investigation. So let's see what happens. Nevertheless, good morning to viewers. Let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, today, January 27th, the world marks the Holocaust Memorial Day. It is a moment of global remembrance for one of history's gravest crimes. Now, the Holocaust was the systemic, state-orchestrated murder of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany and its collaborators during the Second World War, primarily between 1941 and 1945. That's some 85 years ago. Now, alongside the affected Jews, there were also millions of other victims, which included Roma people, people with disabilities, political opponents, and others targeted for who they were. Now, the Holocaust did not begin with the death camps, but with years of anti-Semitism, propaganda, discriminatory laws, and the steady erosion of rights. All of this eventually developed into mass deportations and industrialized killing centers such as Auschwitz. Now, decades later, Holocaust Memorial Day is not about drawing direct comparisons to the social issues we see today, but rather it's about recognizing the warning signs, reminding the world that dehumanization, hate speech, and unchecked power, wherever they occur, can carry devastating consequences. Now, across the world, from the United Nations to Israel, different countries and organizations are commemorating Holocaust Memorial Day in their own way. So in Germany, for example, just over here, we can see that there are going to be nationwide moments of silence, including the Bundesliga, which is the German Premier Football League. Football fixtures will be played under the hashtag We Remember campaigns. And these are just a few different articles or examples of different commemorative activities. The United Nations, they have their official remembrance ceremony taking place at UNHQ in New York, also in parts of Europe, the United States, and Norway. Well, let's move on now to the Middle East. And Israel has recovered the remains of the final hostage previously held in Gaza. 24-year-old Ran Gavili, who is a member of an elite police unit, was killed fighting Hamas-led militants on the 7th of October back in 2023. He was the last of 251 people captured that day, still held in the territory. Now, the handover of the body marks the completion of a key initial demand of Donald Trump's ceasefire plan for Gaza. It should open the way for progress into the second stage, which the United States announced was underway earlier this month. And ahead of the return, Israel did say that it would open the border crossing with Egypt, which would allow much needed aid into Gaza, which is yet to happen. But we will keep our eyes, as always, across the Middle East. And let's round things up on today's World Brief with social media. Now, both France and Egypt are considering stopping social media access for children in their countries. Now, over in France, the National Assembly has backed a bill that would ban social media access for under 15s. A proposal supported by President Emmanuel Macron is also underway, and there are also provisions for phones to be banned in high schools. Now, lawmakers in the lower house have agreed key elements of the bill before voting 116 to 23 in its favor. Up next, the bill will then go to the upper house, the Senate, for approval. And over in Egypt, its House of Representatives says that it's working on a legislation to regulate children's use of social media. Now, as we know, Australia really led the charge in this type of thing with their social media ban for under 16s, which came into effect on the 10th of December last year. Now, the United Kingdom is also planning to follow suit. So a lot of countries wanting to protect their younger citizens from the ills of social media. Let's move on now to our newspaper headlines across the world. As always, we begin with the front page of This Day. And This Day reports that the All Progressive Congress has essentially cautioned the Minister of Culture, Tourism and the Creative Economy, Hannatu Musawa, following her comments yesterday, and other party officials to stop fueling speculations and focus on governance, essentially dismissing reports that Vice President Kashim Shettima may be replaced as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's running mate in 2027. They've called those rumours baseless. This Day also reports that the Nigerian military has confirmed the 16 officers detained over the alleged indiscipline had been linked by an investigation to an attempted coup against President Tinubu's administration and will be court-martialed. Now, the Armed Forces of Nigeria said the trials to be conducted under the Armed Forces Act are aimed at ensuring accountability, fairness, and due process. Today is Tuesday. So on this week's edition of The Advocate by Onikepo Braithwaite, she revisits this tragic death of baby Nkanu, responding to public reactions and rejoinders to her earlier column. Now, she reinforces the case for due process, insisting that grief must not replace evidence. Moving on, we do have the Daily Trust, I believe, up next. Wonderful. So the Daily Trust reports that Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf has joined the APC, receiving backing from party leaders, including Abdullahi Ganduje and Barao Jibrin for his 2027 re-election bid. Now, the defection signals a major realignment in Kano politics and a consolidation of Yusuf's position within the ruling party. Now, several cabinet members loyal to his former ally, that is, of course, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, have resigned, highlighting the growing political divide over in Kano State. Let's take a look at the Daily Independent. The Daily Independent reports that workers of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, backed by the Nigerian Labour Congress, stormed the National Industrial Court in Abuja to protest unresolved welfare issues and demanded the sack of FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. Now, the court is expected to rule today on an application seeking to halt the ongoing indefinite strikes, which workers say was triggered by unpaid salaries, promotion arrears, and poor working conditions. Moving on to the New Telegraph this morning. The New Telegraph reports that opposition caucus in the House of Representatives has raised alarm over the alleged non-implementation of the 2025 Appropriation Act, warning that it could prompt calls for the removal of top finance officials. To the Punch reports that a presidential agribusiness policy panel has recommended freezing rice imports. That's after Nigerians spent over 1 trillion naira importing about 2.4 million metric tons of rice in 2025. Now, the committee said that the current rice surplus is driven largely by imports rather than domestic production. So something to bear in mind there. We're talking aviation again on the front page of The Guardian. And so essentially The Guardian is reporting that, we're talking about house rent. So The Guardian is reporting that soaring rents across southern Nigeria are outpacing residents' incomes, with 2-bedroom apartments in major cities now exceeding 1 million naira annually. Professionals are blaming high construction costs, macroeconomic instability, and unregulated estate agents, while experts warn that government intervention through affordable housing, new towns, and stronger regulation is needed. Let's move over to the United Kingdom now. We've got the I paper, and their focus with many British dailies today is the fact that there has been anger over the Conservative Party, saying that it had done essentially all it could do to look after Suella Braverman's mental health issues. That's as the Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage, he responded to the Conservatives' mental health statement by saying that attacks will get nastier still. Suella Braverman defected from the Conservatives to Reform Party, and that's why we're seeing that. And finally, we do have The Sun. We're still on this Brooklyn Beckham saga, and we are wrapping things up with the Beckhams essentially putting out a united front, or as the headline says, Clan United. That's as the family are out in Paris. Victoria did pick up an arts award, and that's happening a week after her eldest son, her firstborn son, Brooklyn, who's pictured just over here with his wife, Nicola, wrote that he did not want to reconcile with his family. So those are your newspaper headlines. Annual Brief. Love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, Femi, I totally condemn what was done to the Jewish people in Auschwitz and other parts of Germany, which started with a lot of propaganda, started by Goebbels and the likes. In fact, dial back, everything started with Hitler's book Mein Kampf, which I've read many times over. and him talking about the iron race and, going after the Jewish people that were successful, that were industrialists and the likes of Warburgs of this world and all of that.
Yes.
And you see, a lot of people fail to realize that part of the things that also accelerated American growth was a lot of the persecuted Jews that came to America. They were industrialists, they started up businesses, and they did so well, and they added to the growth of America. But many years down, over 80 years down the line, the Israeli government of Netanyahu, and I like to make a distinction, it is the right-wing government of Netanyahu, not the Jewish people. Because I've seen a lot of people protest against the war in Gaza, and I respect their views. The right-wing government of Netanyahu has just done an Auschwitz on the Palestinian people in Gaza. While we show all these gory pictures, which, by the way, history tells us that they tried as much as possible to cover those days. While we show all these gory pictures, we should also take a time to show the gory pictures from Gaza and see what the same government of Netanyahu did to Gazans and try to look at it and say, it's not almost similar with what happened in Auschwitz. But the difference is that, at least with Auschwitz, they got reprieve. There was the Nuremberg trials.
Yes.
But with the atrocities Israel committed, the government of Netanyahu committed in Gaza, there will be no Nuremberg trials. So they would do it and go scot-free. But at least, people were ostracized, if you remember, the Nuremberg trials. And when you also look at the things that cascaded around that time, that is also what is happening in America today. The rise of nationalism, the right wing being exactly what Donald Trump is doing today. People don't want to hear it, but that's the truth. What's the difference between Auschwitz and Alligator Alcatraz? That you are locking up young people, you're dehumanizing them just because you have an agenda and an ethos. At first you said, it was going to be people that really violated the law. Today, American citizens are being killed on the streets of America. So all of this is happening. And Auschwitz ought to serve as a reminder. When you read the notes of people like Anne Frank, it ought to serve as a reminder. But the question is, over 80 years after Femi, have we learned anything from Auschwitz? No. In fact, we have even perfected the act of killing. There were gas chambers in Auschwitz. There are allegations of Israel using white phosphorus to also put in missiles to attack people in Gaza. So that's the way of the world today.
I like it. Mentioned at the 81st anniversary of the Holocaust, and every year there are different activities to mark it, and this is led by the International Auschwitz Council. This year they're moving away from political speeches and focusing more on the voices of the remaining few survivors left. And so this would be a departure from what you would have in the past, and now more it's about let's hear their stories and never forget. And the purpose of never forgetting, of course, is so that there's never a repeat of what's happened. This year is also very significant because in recent times we've also seen an attack on the Jewish community in different parts of the world, and so it is important for them to continue to hold up this Memorial Day and to continue to tell their stories. There'll be different activities as highlighted in different key countries in the world. But moving away from that, let me talk about the Australian ban, because I remember that when this came out, I'd mentioned that there were already similar policies being debated in countries like Italy, in Europe primarily.
Yes.
The United Kingdom now is one of such countries. And, just looking at how well it's worked in Australia, the success rate is actually quite high. In fact, what has been debated, there have been some court cases instituted, one by Reddit itself saying and challenging the fact that if they take away 15-year-olds from communication or political discourse in a few years, they're going to be able to vote, and not being exposed to such information would hamper their rights. So a constitutional challenge there. Yes. Also, teenagers have challenged this in courts as well. So just looking at the Australian template, because a number of countries had looked up to them as a template for the digital gatekeeping and protection of young people. Now, what would like to see is how this will play out in other countries. But for tech players, the conversation is then now that it might cost a bit more money because they will have to design different templates, interface for different countries based on legislature around ages. But if you look at the Australian template, it has worked to a very large extent, and I don't see this going away. More countries would adopt this, and in fact, a lot more argument for than argument against. Would the African continent catch up on this? We'll watch and see in the next few weeks, months, years.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start from Nigeria and then take some of the global issues. And to start with Nigeria, it's about an issue we've discussed on this program about 3-4 times, which is reported today in this day newspaper, the Tribune, the Sun, and some other newspapers, which is the broadcast that the governor of Osun State had yesterday with regard to the withholding of financial allocations contrary to Section 162 by the federal government of Nigeria. First, I would like to commend Governor Adeleke for his patience and then for the maturity that he has demonstrated. While the president was away, I think I said on this same table that one of the things he has to address is this issue of the seizure of allocations to the local government councils of Osun State. But the issue goes far deeper than that. Now, the tenure of the Osun State local government chairmen and councillors who are APC members expired since October 22, 2025. Now, judgments of the Federal High Court of Osogbo in 2022 upheld also by the Court of Appeal in November 2025 said that these were illegitimate persons occupying office. And yet APC members are still holding on to those positions, creating confusion. The confusion is simply that the law says that when you have completed your tenure, you leave. But they've still gone ahead to the court to say they are on appeal, they want to remain in the position in breach of constitutional provisions. And so the governor came out yesterday and said, look, this is a violation of the law. And second, that the people who are suffering are the people of Osun State. Retirees cannot get their money, teachers cannot be paid in the various local councils. And yet, this APC local council chairman, they have the audacity to now go and mobilize the police to put them there by force. I think that is a matter that the president of Nigeria should address, because he cannot have party members who are behaving badly and like rogues in Osun State. The Inspector General of Police also must withdraw his men who have been accused of taking over the administration of local councils in Osun State. And beyond all of that, the governor of Osun State yesterday directly pointed at former minister, current minister, former governor Oyetola as being the person who is conniving with both the police and APC people, opening accounts which they do not have right to open. I think that, this is about the survival of our democracy. It is also about breach of the Constitution, and the president should not be seen to be supporting this. 130 billion has been withheld from the people of Osun State at the local government level. And now we have a president who himself is the main champion of federalism. At least he was when he was governor in Lagos State. Now, as for the January 27 of the Holocaust Memorial, a very sad chapter in the history of humanity. It was also on January 27, 1945, that the Auschwitz concentration camp was closed and the people were freed. Now, pointing to hate, pointing to discrimination, 6 million Jews lost their lives. Today, there will be the lighting of candles, lighting the darkness across the world. Whether it is in Poland, where they have a memorial, a museum, whether it is in Washington, D.C., and elsewhere in the United States, where they also have museums commemorating the tragedy. But the most painful thing, or whether it's the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam, all of that reminding us of what happened during that sad moment in global history. The seriousness here is that genocide has not ended. We have had genocide in Bosnia, we have had it in Serbia, we have had it in Rwanda, we have had it in Sudan. I will not add Nigeria because I do not agree that there is genocide in Nigeria. So it's about memory, and memory is part of the construction of human civilization. So these are the issues. As for Israel, saying now Givli has been rescued, now it puts a closure. And we just hope that this will lead Israel to support the United States to move to the second phase of the ceasefire in the Israeli-Gaza Strip conflict in the interest of peace. But a lot will depend on what happens hereafter, and the opening of the Rafah crossing.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Adefeme.